Star Wars is an expansive universe that extends way out of the reaches of just the movies and TV shows. Hi, my name is Tia Fabi. I'm the content manager for Geek Vibes Nation. And today I wanted to talk about a Star Wars novel that I just read and finished for the first time, and feel that if you are a Star Wars fan and you are a reader, then you should definitely check this out. Today, I want to talk about the book Dark Disciple by Christie Golden. It was released on July 7th in 2015, and it is a canon novel that is set within the Clone Wars cartoon era. As a quick background, Star Wars The Clone Wars was canceled after the sixth season following the acquirement of the Star Wars property by Disney. And there were a lot of different storylines and all that were supposed to appear in a seventh season that were unfortunately scrapped. And we never got to see even when Disney came out with the seventh and final season of The Clone Wars. There are a lot of unfinished episodes that you can find on YouTube that I do actually suggest. It's a little jarring seeing the animation so unfinished, but they are pretty good, honestly. The writing and voice acting is so good that you can almost look past the unfinished animation. For example, and this is a little off track, but for example, there was a storyline that was supposed to be in the seventh season of the Clone Wars that dealt with General Grievous getting his hands on a large kyber crystal, and Anakin and Obi-Wan having to stop him. And it's really good. You can just search it on YouTube. It's really good. I mean, it's all voice acted, and you can use your imagination to really finish the animation of the unfinished episode. But one of the scrapped story arcs that was meant to be in the Clone Wars was what eventually went on to be the Dark Disciple, which I'm really happy that Christie Golden decided to put that in a novel. And I honestly want to say that I kind of like it better that we have it in a novel version as opposed to an animated version, because I really feel like there was a lot that she was able to get into that maybe would have been restricted by being in the animated story. But I listened to this book on Audible. This episode is not sponsored. I just want to say that. But I listened to The Dark Disciple on Audible, and I absolutely loved it. And so let's get into it, right? The whole storyline is about the Jedi Council kind of coming to the conclusion that someone like Count Dooku has to be taken off the board. He is far too powerful. He's been doing far too many bad things during the Clone Wars, and the war simply has dragged on for far too long. Now, it is not really the Jedi way to essentially want to have someone assassinated, but the Jedi Council comes to the conclusion that for the greater good, this is something that needs to be done. And rather than kind of sending the usual people like Anakin or Obi-Wan, they all come to the conclusion that they should send Quinlan Vos. Quinlan Vos is a Jedi who, in the cartoon, you don't see a whole lot. I mean, the episode that he is essentially introduced in, he's a very outward character. He has a big personality, and you do get a good sense of who he is, but you don't really see him a lot in cartoon form. It was at the point that when I was first listening to the book, I kind of had to stop and look up Quinlan Vos, and then I remembered that's who we're talking about. So they get Quinlan Vos, who has had experience in the past working undercover, and they tell him that he needs to essentially get the help of Asajj Ventress. Now, at this point, Asajj Ventress has been betrayed by Count Dooku. She was formerly his apprentice. And then because Darth Sidious ordered Count Dooku to have her killed, now she is essentially making a life for herself as a bounty hunter. So she has no love lost for someone like Count Dooku. So, in short-term words, right, Quinlan kind of approaches her, doesn't let on at first that he's a Jedi, and they start working together. And it's a really good dynamic between someone like Asajj Ventress and Quinlan. I want to say even in the cartoon show, you kind of got this idea that someone like Asajj is multifaceted. She's not just this evil assassin who is just hell-bent on rage and death all the time. I mean, especially when she does end up getting betrayed by Count Dooku. We deal with the whole Night Sisters. So we deal with a lot with her personality. We even see at some point in the cartoon her and Ahsoka working together. She's definitely a morally ambiguous person. She's definitely in the gray zone, but she's not 100% evil. And her personality and her beliefs and all that are really explored in this book. And at first, of course, she wants to be very cold against someone like Quinlan, who is so happy go lucky, who is so bright. It's almost infuriating to her at first, but then at the same time, charming. And it's a great book that really explores her character, his character as well. It raises a lot of questions of, you know, is the Jedi Council in the right? Because there were a lot of moments in the book where it just seemed like maybe a lot of their practices were a little archaic, and you can kind of see why they ended up losing the war, because they were so many of them were so naive to things that were actually happening that for us as the viewers are very obvious. Obi-Wan is in the book quite a bit, and he's an interesting character in this book because he's very much who you have come to know Obi-Wan to be. He's also at times maybe, and I say this with a grain of salt if you've read the book, right? He's a little dismissive of Quinlan's eventual romance with Asajj because Jedi cannot have those sort of strong attachments. But at the same time, you know that Obi-Wan feels for him because of how he felt about Duchess Satine of Mandalore. But you can see that for Obi-Wan, his principles and the Jedi Order rule all. There is no question. But in the book, Quinlan Vos does start to question things. Not only does he start questioning the way the Jedi is doing things, but he starts questioning if he even wants to be in the Jedi Order anymore, because he has fallen for Asajj. And it's a really like if you're a if you're a fan fiction writer, right? You know the whole concept of slow burns, and it is a wonderful slow burn. Their romance is built up very naturally. And the whole book isn't just entirely about their romance with each other, but it certainly plays a huge part. At some point during their time together, Asajj figures out who Quinlan is, he reveals who he is, and she is all for helping him take down Count Dooku, obviously, because of her own personal vendetta against him. But she takes him to Dathomir. They explore the Night Sisters history and their belief systems and their practices, and you see moments where Quinlan Vos is kind of tapping a little into the dark side. He's questioning if just learning the light side is even something that anyone should do. Maybe it's too extreme, maybe it's unnatural, and that also is explored in the book. Denying love and romance seems a little unnatural, and that is certainly explored. There's a lot of great scenes. One of my personal favorite scenes in the book is when the two of them have to infiltrate a party that is being thrown for Count Dooku, which is a nice bit of world building, because we see a lot of in the show, right, and in the movies, just war. And certainly you get a lot more explored in the show, The Clone Wars, than you do the movies. But to see the separatists actually having soirees and, seeing them meet with each other. I mean, I feel like we only got a small bit of what their Senate looks like in certain episodes of The Clone Wars. So it was interesting that they're actually holding galas and balls, and, Asajj dressing up and them going and attending it and all that. It was, to me, I love the scene. And I know that if you haven't read the book, you're like, Tia, what are you talking about? It's a good scene. You got some of your typical separatist players there, right? Count Dooku's in it, General Grievous is in it a little. But this does definitely focus primarily on Asajj Ventress and Quinlan, and it's nice seeing the story from both of their perspectives. And the book takes some turns that I really didn't expect it to take. One essentially being, and I guess I should have said spoilers, but I mean, the book did come out like 8 years ago. As I'm editing the video, I'll put spoilers on the screen. But at some point in the book, Quinlan, you think, right, that he has become a disciple for Count Dooku. And it was at that moment that I was sitting there, because I really thought that the book being called Dark Disciple, I'm like, oh, obviously is talking about Asajj Ventress. She is the one who was literally a Sith. But then as I sat there and read more of it, I was like, oh, they're talking about Quinlan Vos, because not only is he becoming more of a dark disciple because Asajj is teaching him more of the dark side, but then he literally goes and starts working for Count Dooku. And it's this whole thing that you as the audience don't know, no one knows, because not that you don't know that, but you don't know, is he doing that undercover to get more information, get closer to killing Count Dooku, or is he actually doing it because he's fallen to the dark side? And it's really sad, because Asajj, who again was a Sith, is sitting there going, no, not Quinlan Vos, like positive, happy Quinlan Vos. He couldn't fall to the dark side. She's heartbroken by that simple fact, and her trying to combat her own feelings of knowing that he fell to the dark side, but everyone, including Quinlan, telling her that he didn't, and her wondering, is she wrong in this case, and even Obi-Wan not wanting to believe it. It's a really good storyline in that case, because you kind of don't find out the answer until the very end. There's a lot of twists and turns that the story makes that you just question if that actually happened or not. So I don't want to give like a complete play-by-play of the book. I mean, you should definitely either read it or listen to it to see how it exactly goes down, how it ends. It's a very beautifully tragic book that very much surprised me. I mean, that was the first Star Wars book that I have consumed, right? I'm currently almost finished with A New Dawn, because I just watched Star Wars Rebels and I was absolutely obsessed with Kanan and Hera. So I've of course had to read a book when Kanan and Hera first met. But Dark Disciple was the first Star Wars book that I've read. I'm planning on reading more, and it really just surprised me how well written it was and how expansive it was. I mean, as much as I would have liked to see this play out in the Clone Wars as well as all the other canceled story arcs, I am happy that at least Christie Golden decided to put this in a book form, because a lot of the other storylines we didn't get like that. And it would have been really nice to see. So please make sure that you check out that book. I give it like a 9 out of 10. I want to say the only reason why it's not a 10 out of 10 is because the end drags just a little. I feel like they could have maybe shortened that up just a little bit, but I mean, that is such a nitpicky thing to say. I thought it was a great book, and if I was to do a character analysis on Asajj Ventress, which I'm not going to do really at the moment, I won't do a huge one, but I would look towards that book, because everything we got in the show, while great for Asajj Ventress, and certainly built up her character, her personality, that leads you to believe that her story in Dark Disciple is believable, but it doesn't. Everything from the show doesn't compare to the book. The book just explains so much about her character. I love the way that she was written. Every bit of it is tangible and believable. She is a character that comes from a very interesting order when you learn more about the Night Sisters. And it also just explores how, yes, she uses more of the dark side, but she is almost like the perfect kind of in between almost, because she's not 100% on the dark side, but she's not 100% on the light side. But she has this like really amazing redemption arc in it that, to me, when I listened to it, I sat there and said, if only you had more people like her, maybe the tides would have been turned in the war. Because, and not to get into a bigger thing because that's a whole nother debate, but you see a lot of the flaws of the Jedi Order and the Jedi Council in this book through both Asajj and Quinlan Vos. So I think that was another reason. Like, it's a good dark romance, but it's also a good Star Wars book. So for anyone who sits there and says, I don't really care about the romance or anything, and that's fine. So you think maybe you wouldn't want to read this book for that, but I'm telling you, it's good Star Wars on top of the Asajj and Vos storyline. So again, if you want to read this book, you can absolutely get it. If you want to listen to it like I did, you can go on Audible. Let me see who narrated it. Yes, so Dark Disciple was narrated by Mark Thompson, and he honestly does a lot of narration for Star Wars books. Like, he is narrating A New Dawn that I'm listening to right now, and practically all of the Star Wars books that are in my wish list have been narrated by him as well. So he's very good at it. So if you are, driving, taking the bus, whatever, and you're like, I don't really have time to sit down and read an actual book, just do the Audible version. It's a really good version. It definitely builds up the suspense and the emotions. I recommend Dark Disciple so much. I'm so happy that I decided to read it. I think that it's just such a great book. I can't say more about it, but I'm absolutely loving my descent into Star Wars. I did mention a little bit of this relationship and the book in my last Star Wars video, which was all about how I did not think Anakin and Padme had a good relationship, which some people agreed with me. Some people were quite adamant about not agreeing with me, which is fine. Absolutely. I welcome that sort of discourse. But yeah, I mean, if you have read Dark Disciple, please let me know. If you think I should go into a full character analysis for Asajj Ventress, I will do so, because I think if I can get the research down and kind of really put my thoughts together, that this could be a great character analysis. But still, let me know. She's a phenomenal character that I definitely liked in the show, but I like more even reading in a book. And also tell me if you think they should also convert some of those lost story arcs into book form, because I'm telling you, from watching that Kyber Crystal arc unfinished on YouTube, I would have definitely taken that in a book. But then again, I'm a little partial because that arc is very it features General Grievous a lot, and that's probably like my favorite character in Star Wars, so I'll just take anything that has General Grievous in it. But anyway, if you are not subscribed to this channel, please make sure that you're subscribed. Give this video a like and let me know what you thought of Dark Disciple. Have you read it? Have you not read it? What do you think of Asajj Ventress? And were you aware of who the character was, Quinlan Vos, before reading this book? As always, my name is Tia. I'm the content manager for Geek Nation, and it was great talking to you all once again, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.